Time for our weekly visit with senior producer from NFL Films and co-host of ESPN's NFL Matchup show. It is the one and only Greg Cosell joining us, a newly minted grandfather. Congratulations, Greg.
Brownie, thanks so much. Yeah, it's really exciting, really cool. It seemed like such an abstraction for so long, and then all of a sudden, wow, the little guy is out, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. Congratulations. We're all happy for you. Does that, all right, got to ask you, though, how much is the new grandbaby going to distract from your film study? Because we have a vested interest in, keeping you nose to the grindstone.
I figure I'd wait just a week or two before we start working on the 3-step and 5-step drop passing game.
Right, there you go.
Nice. I want to start here, Greg, because I'm curious, based on what you've seen from the Chiefs' defense. Obviously, a lot has changed in their secondary.
Yeah.
No Tyrann Mathieu, no Daniel Sorensen. I know Thornhill's been there as a rotational safety. He's a starter now. They pick up Justin Reed in free agency from Houston. And then they're pretty young on the corners, with the exception of L'Jarius Sneed, who's been there, as well as Rashad Fenton, who may not play this week with a hamstring injury.
Correct.
I don't know if they're going to bring Trent McDuffie off IR and put him back in the lineup, or if they're going to go with the 4th and 7th round picks, in Williams and Watson. Either way, there's still a lot of newness back there, and I'm curious as to how many times maybe you've caught them in a situation where maybe they didn't have all their ducks in a row, a blown coverage, a missed assignment through the course of the first 5 weeks. Have they been pretty buttoned up, or have there been some issues for them back there, knowing the inexperience of playing with one another?
Yeah, I would say for the most part they've been okay, but you do run into some issues because if Fenton doesn't go, again, this past week, he got hurt late, and the player who came in was Williams, who's a draft choice. Right. Watson has been starting in their sub. He plays on the outside. So he's been playing, and he's actually played pretty well. Sneed's a really good player. He plays outside in base, and we'll see how much base they play this week. We'll see how many snaps of base the Bills play on offense, and we'll see then how the Chiefs respond. In some ways, I might think, Brownie, that the Chiefs might just not even play base defense this week, even if the Bills are in base offense, because I would think that they're not going to be overly concerned about the run game. Obviously last week for the Chiefs was the kind of game that certainly the Bills are not going to play. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're in nickel and dime pretty much the whole game.
And if they do, certainly the Bills managed to score 36 points on them last January, but this is an entirely revamped secondary. And to us, it's much faster back there and much more athletic, even though it's very young.
I would say that that's fair. Obviously they're different at safety. Sorensen is no longer there. Sorensen was a nice player for a couple of years, but you wouldn't call him highly athletic. So they have Thornhill back there. The guy that's interesting to me, although he gave up a play this week and then he got, I think, taken out toward the end of the game, is the rookie from Cincinnati, Cook, who I liked a lot coming out. He played in their dime. He's actually an intriguing player because he can blitz, but he coverage is where he may struggle a little bit. The other thing you saw, on tape with them is they played snaps with 7 defensive backs, and I'm curious to see if they'll do that as well. I think it's pretty evident that when you play the Bills, the concern is the pass game. It's not the run game. So it's almost a case of, hey, if they want to hand it off, let them hand it off. But we've got to stop the pass game. The thing that struck me, I went back and took a quick look at last year's AFC divisional playoff game. And the thing that really struck me in taking a look back at that game, guys, was Steve Spagnuolo is normally a high percentage blitzer. And he hardly blitzed in that AFC divisional playoff game a year ago. Now, normally when you play the same team again, you don't do the exact same thing. So I'm not suggesting he's going to be blitz happy, but I'd be curious to see if he sort of increases his pressure frequency in this game. Now, he may not feel comfortable with that. I don't know. It depends, I guess, who he has on the outside.
Yeah,
right.
And last year, if I remember right, when the Chiefs were in dime, they would use a spy on Allen too. I seem to remember that. I'm curious, because you mentioned Cook, the dime guy. he's injured. He hasn't practiced all week, so I don't even know if he's going to be available to them.
Yeah, maybe he won't be because I then he got hurt this week toward the end, and they brought in Bush, who played as the seventh DB, but Bush would come in then and he'd be the dime.
Yeah, I'm wondering because the Bills did not do this in either of the two meetings against the Chiefs last year. I'm talking about 10 personnel with what Khalil Shakir was able to do last week.
Yep.
Isaiah McKenzie is now healthy, and you have a secondary that, even though they've played pretty well to this point, they're still kind of new to one another. I just wonder if they test them a little bit. Like maybe there's a small package of plays with 10 personnel for the Bills this week, just out of curiosity.
You know what? That would not surprise me, Brownie. And I'd given that some thought as well, because you spread them out. Again, if you do that, you obviously have to protect, because you don't want everything to be a quick throw. You just don't want to live that way. They do a lot of that as foundational because it's kind of in lieu of a run game. But you also do need to throw the ball down the field. It's a very fair point. They could try that and see how that plays out, particularly if Fenton cannot go and they have to go to another rookie besides Watson to play in the secondary with Snead.
So we've been talking about the Bills since the beginning, and you kind of know how the Bills have evolved away now that they are where they are. They've got when Davis is healthy, when Diggs is healthy, and then it's either Shakir or McKenzie in the slot. Dawson Knox will probably be back on the field. You kind of know what you're getting. The difference in this matchup is just what you said, and you alluded to it a minute ago. How has the Chiefs' defensive personnel changed in the shadow of the fact that they didn't blitz much the last time they played the Bills? And how has the personnel changed? And what will Spagnuolo decide he wants to do against these guys this time? And that's the chess match, right?
Right, and that's the unanswerable. We all can speculate based on track record and history, but we just don't know. The fact that Gabe Davis seems to now have regained his sea legs and is a vertical threat, which, by the way, he certainly was in the AFC divisional playoff game last year. That's a concern as well. How do you deal with that? If McKenzie is there, and he'll play, obviously. He's very good against man because he can run away from people. Then you've got Knox as well, who I think, when they play dime, it'll be interesting to see if they play man, and they will, who will match up to Knox. My guess is it could be Bush. It could be Reed. It won't be Thornhill. So this is the chess match part, Stephen. You're 100% right. We just don't know. But I think at some point the Bills, as they did a year ago, they're going to have to throw the ball down the field. I don't think they can live on those quick rhythm throws, and there'll be a lot of those. That's part of what they do, but they will have to push it down the field at some point.
The one thing that the Chiefs believe is that they are a faster defense. They might be a little light in the pants, though, at the second level. Willie Gay is going to serve game 4 of a 4-game suspension, still not available. And it's been Darius Harris, I think, that's been the main replacement there.
Yeah.
What do you think of him?
He made some plays this week. Now, different game because the Raiders ran 19 snaps with 6 O-linemen and a fullback, and we know that that's not the way the Bills play. Although the interesting thing about the Bills is in the 2 games a year ago, Gilliam played a lot of snaps. So, I'd be curious to see how much the Bills change up their personnel. Do they really mix and match? Does Gilliam play a lot of snaps? Does he not play? Do they go 10 personnel? I mean, these are all the unanswerables, but the rookie Chenal, he plays in their base 4-3. He shows up on film. So does Harris. But when they go dime, the only linebacker is Bolton, who, by the way, is a very good player.
Yeah. What about your thoughts about how typically when you look at a Buffalo team and their defense the way it's constructed now, we saw the Pittsburgh Steelers pick on Kaiir Elam a week ago. If he's back out there, do you sense him as being vulnerable?
I mean, I think when you have a great quarterback like Mahomes is, you always look for matchups and you look to pick on people. I think the Chiefs' offense is different right now than it was when they had Tyreek Hill. I mean, even last year with Hill, they kind of dialed it down a bit and they became more of a short to intermediate passing team. But I think they will take their shots for sure. You have to test. Look, Elam, Jackson, you've got to take your shots. These are young players. Elam's a rookie. Jackson's still relatively inexperienced. Kenny Pickett threw the ball pretty well last week. I mean, obviously the game was out of hand, but he hung in there and he made some throws. And obviously Mahomes is better and the pass game is better. So yes, they'll go after it, Steve. You know that. That's the way the NFL works. The question is, how will Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier play? Last year in the divisional playoff game, they played a ton out of a two-deep shell, a ton of shell coverage. I would think they do a lot of the same thing. I don't think they can play a lot of single high in this game.
Right. And one of the main reasons this team signed Von Miller in free agency was to beat the Chiefs. They needed a closer at the end of a football game. He is that. What has been your assessment maybe of the tackle play by the Chiefs with Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley?
I think it's been very erratic.
Yeah.
I think they're beatable players. The big question, the corollary to that, as you guys know, is not can you beat the tackles, which you can, by the way, but can you then get Mahomes to the ground? That becomes the corollary point, because Mahomes is so good, but he's also at the point in his career, because he's so comfortable playing outside of structure, that he often moves when he doesn't need to move. So even though the Bills, everybody's healthy, as you said, with the exception possibly of Phillips, that's what you said, correct?
Yep.
I mean, so they have everybody healthy. Do we see Rousseau inside more in this game? Because Mahomes is still only 6'2". He's not a tall quarterback, to maybe take away, with his height, some of those quick rhythm inside throws, and then, see someone else on the edge with Von Miller. But the key is not just getting pressure and squeezing the pocket. The key is then getting Mahomes down or throwing the ball away or doing something that's not a completion or a run, on 3rd and 9 for 15 yards, because Mahomes is really, really good at that.
Is the best way to, or have we seen what teams think is the best way to defend Kansas City? Still double safeties, keep a lid on them, and just try and get Mahomes off his spot. I mean, what is the general tactic for this team? Is it still as it's always been?
I don't think there's one thing. I mean, look, I remember after the Super Bowl that they lost to the Bucs a couple of years ago, and right away the word that gets thrown around, as you guys know, is blueprint. And I'm not a believer in that, because Patrick Mahomes, just like Josh Allen, they're really good players. Teams try things. These guys end up beating them at times. Every once in a while, there's going to be a game, for whatever reason, where a particular tactic works. That doesn't mean that you just, etch that tactic in stone and play the same thing every week, and that means it automatically works. Because I remember what the Bucs did in the Super Bowl. They played a lot of two-man coverage. Now, I personally think that's a good tactic to play against Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, you have to be able to generate pressure with your down 4, because two-man coverage requires all 7 pass coverage defenders, so you only have a 4-man rush. I think the Bills can do that. I think they're capable of generating pressure against this O-line with 4. Then the question is, can you get them down? But I think you will see two-man coverage. They did play that in the AFC divisional playoff game a year ago. I think that will be part of their coverage mix in this game.
Let's talk a little bit about, the new additions on offense for the Chiefs. We're talking about Valdez-Scantling and Smith-Schuster, Pacheco in the backfield. Looks like Smith-Schuster is that intermediate, running a lot of crossing route stuff, and then Valdez-Scantling supposed to be the field stretcher. How would you assess their effectiveness in fitting into those roles here through the first 5 weeks?
I think it's been a little bit of a work in progress. Valdez-Scantling, obviously he's long, he can run. If memory serves me correctly, I don't really remember any deep plays, long touchdown types. Maybe I'm missing one, but I don't really remember that. But he certainly can run, and that factors in to the way you have to defend. Smith-Schuster is much more of the short to intermediate receiver. They still have Hardman, and Hardman can run. The thing is, they've got two guys in Valdez-Scantling and Hardman who can lift the top off of defense. And whenever you have receivers like that, as you know, Steve, you have to be a little conscious of that. I mean, you can try to defend the quick game throws, the rhythm throws, but it only takes one over the top, and all of a sudden you're beat. But I think as far as truly Brownie working them in, I think it's been a little bit of a work in progress.
How has the absence of Tyreek Hill and these new guys in a work in progress, how's that affected Travis Kelce?
Seemingly not much.
Right.
I mean, Kelce has 7. It's interesting. Kelce has 7 touchdowns. They're all in the red zone. Now, what I've noticed around the league in general this year is a lot more bracketing, double teaming of quality receivers. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the Bills' approach. I'm not going to sit here and say I know what exactly Sean McDermott or Leslie will do, but my sense is that's not the way the Bills play. I think they're very comfortable with how fundamentally sound they are in their zones, with their eye discipline, their ability to match, to carry, to deliver, all those things that we talk about when you play in zone coverage. My sense is they feel pretty comfortable with that. Could they, let's say in a specific situation, maybe tight red zone, maybe a specific third down, feel they have to bracket Kelce? Possibly. But I don't think that will be a foundational approach.
Last thing from me, looks like Butker might be back this week. Coach Reed said it looks like he's going to be back. Apparently, Coach Reed also just said after practice today they're not bringing Trent McDuffie off of IR for this week. They're going to wait another week. So if Fenton doesn't play, they are down to Josh Williams and Jalen Watson, the 2 rookie corners, the 4th and 7th.
And Watson's been playing, so it'd be Williams who would be the new guy, Brownie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I think you got to go after that. I mean, it's as simple as that. You got to make this kid play. And I think obviously you're not throwing it on every play, but I think you have to make him play and see how he does. I mean, this is that kind of game. Is the weather supposed to be fine?
67 degrees, no sign of precip.
And no big wind or anything.
Not that I can see. And you know what?
Yeah.
That stadium, it seems to keep the wind out for the most part. It's got to be really something special for it to get windy down in there.
So, I mean, I think you'll see a passing game for the most part on both teams. If there's a team that runs more, I would say it'd be the Chiefs, quite honestly. I think that my sense is, and you could say this relatively every week because of the way the Bills play, but my sense is, given what the Chiefs will put out in the secondary, and given that I think the Chiefs have a solid pass rush but not a dominant pass rush, I think the Bills will believe that their pass game, which clearly is the foundation of their offense, can be very productive in this game. The question now becomes, can they hit some big plays? I mean, look, you're not going to hit a 98-yarder and a 60-yarder and all that every week, but keep in mind last year in that divisional playoff game, when it looked like the game might get out of hand, what happened on the first play from scrimmage on the Bills' next possession, the 75-yard touchdown to Gabriel Davis. So there are going to have to be some big plays in this game by the Bills' offense.
I would agree with that, and it's going to be fun to watch. I know people have been asking me what I think about this game. I've been telling them I think it's going to be Bills 76 and the Chiefs 75. And just for good measure, it'll be in double overtime, right?
No, don't do that. Don't do that to me.
Which doesn't exist.
My heart can't take that.
I really think this.
What we need to happen is the Bills to hit that touchdown with 0 time on the clock, not 13 seconds. That's what we need. This, right?
Right. Yeah, you're right. Just see how it plays. I think it's going to come down to somebody making a play late, either offensively or defensively, that's going to take away an opportunity or give an opportunity to the team that wins it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. It's whatever is the number of possessions by each team, you'd love to see that 1 or 2 of those possessions. I mean, obviously, if you're a Bills fan, you'd like to see 1 or 2 of those possessions by the Chiefs end in, a turnover. But again,
right.
Mahomes does not throw a lot of picks.
That's right. Thank you, Greg.
Greg, as always, thank you much. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, guys, I'm excited about this one. Enjoy the weekend.